Students, we are on our week 9, module number 9, and this module is entitled Church Life. And at this opportunity, I have brought you on a field trip to Dr. David Larson's office. Dr. David Larson is my personal friend. I admire him and love him greatly. And we have been together for close, yes, it's going to be 2 decades already. And of course, he has plenty more than me in his life. So let's find out a bit about him. Dr. Larson, thank you for giving us of your time.
Oh, thank you. I think of myself in many different ways, but one of them is that I am Dr. Ramirez's friend. That's one of my identities. I've been teaching here with you for a couple of decades, 20 years, but I came 10 years before, so I have about 30 years here, maybe almost 40. So we've been working together, and I'm happy to be here and happy to be with your students. This is new for me, but I'm having fun.
Thank you, Dr. Larson. You know, it's difficult for them to be on campus, so we bring the campus to them.
Okay,
And in this way, we reach out to where they are.
okay.
And at this time, as we think of the church life, uh, since you have dedicated your life to the church, could you tell us the commitment? How would you describe the commitment you have to the church?
Well, it's very high, but it's important that we be more committed to the God of the church than it is to the church of God, right? And sometimes we get those mixed up. Our first priority is to our Maker, and then a second priority, along with others, would be third, fourth priority is the church. It's a community, and I feel sorry for those who don't belong to a church because they don't have a community. That is, they don't belong to a good church. You could belong to a bad church, but if you belong to a good church, it's a very supporting community.
So you have brought us into a particular disjunction. On the one side, we have our commitment to the church, and we have our commitment to the God of the church. And you have highlighted the hierarchy. The most important is our commitment to the God of the church.
Right.
And this, why would that be the case? Some may argue that the God of the church and the church are the same. What would you tell them?
Well, I would say, for one thing, the church is not perfect, but God is. Another is that the church is fragile. It can easily break, fall apart, but God is not going to fall apart. The church will eventually disappoint you. It will turn around and bite you, and it can hurt, even though you devote your life to it. But God doesn't do that. So none of the things I've said about the church's weaknesses detract from its great value. Everything human has weaknesses, and the church is very human. But it is the body of Christ, right? That's how the New Testament talks about it, the body of Christ. And the body of Christ in real life was deeply wounded. And so is the church.
And the church, as as Jesus' bride, has a destiny that
That's
they're
right.
walking towards. But in between today and that destiny, and if we look a bit back to the history of our church, we have had many different places of locus of center of activity. In the beginning, it was in the Michigan, New England areas associated with a movement. And it has moved on long time ago from Michigan, though there are many things going on in Michigan, nothing against them. How would you illustrate this?
Now, are we talking about, when we say the church, the Christian church in general, or the Seventh-day Adventist church more particularly?
Thank you again for bringing us into those bifurcations and important ones to bring to our attention. Within the church at large, that the Ellen G. White will describe as the what is the word she uses?
The object of
God's love.
Yes.
And the utmost object of God's love, the apple of the eye of God. This church has a particular rendition in what we Seventh-day Adventists call the remanent. And this remanent has manifested itself into the movement that has become Seventh-day Adventists worldwide. And if we circumscribe to that rendition of the church, how would you characterize this Seventh-day Adventist church? Are we still, the locus of our action is based mainly and solely in Michigan? Or
Oh no, I believe in what's called banyan tree Adventism.
Banyan Tree
Yeah,
Adventism?
Bayanan. I think that's how one spells it.
Okay.
Banyan tree Adventism. So if one wants to have a logo for Adventism, you could have the three angels.
Yes.
That's very good. Or you could have a banyan tree. I think they're both very good. Now, we both grew up in islands.
Yes.
That's why we can understand each other, I think.
Indeed.
In the islands that I grew up in, we had many different trees, and one of them was the palm tree. It's very tall, very stately, but it has only one root. And if the wind is too terribly strong, it'll fall over. But the banyan tree is very different. It will reach out like this. Its branches will reach out. Then it will drop vines to the ground. And when the vines are not yet to the ground, youngsters can swing on them as though they were heavy ropes. So they're very strong. They go all the way to the ground. When they reach the ground, they take root there. So the tree goes out like this. It drops vines, becomes rooted there, and that new soil comes up into the tree and nourishes it as a whole. And I think of Adventism that way. It started in New England, but it branched out, and it put its roots down in soil, cultural soil that's very different from New England, and it has drawn that different cultural soil up into the tree, and that new soil nourishes the whole thing. So I have here a picture of banyan tree Adventism. You can see all the different roots.
And all of these have fallen as vines and become branches and become trunks.
That's right. And the tree can reach out to cover a whole acre.
Wow.
It just keeps growing, 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 and getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And I think this is interesting too. The trunk at which the tree began can rot out. So it's totally empty. It looks like it's healthy, but it's inside it has rotted out. And yet the tree is alive because it has all these branches all the way around the circle. And sometimes we think, that the church, well, it is the truth. The Adventist church in New England is not rotten, but it's weak. And it's strongest, the Adventist church is strongest way out there where the branches are dropping into that new cultural soil. So that's what I think of Adventism. It's not a palm tree. It's a culturally diverse and culturally nourished tree.
And this is a living organism.
That's right.
That is the church.
Right.
Banyan tree as an illustration.
Right.
And although it has many trunks, it's still united and all together at the top, crossing the boundary of air in order to maintain the unity.
That's right. It is one tree. Nobody says this is two trees. The banyan tree is one tree because they all come together at the top. And some people will trim them at the top so they have a particular shape. Most people just let them be. But it is one tree. And so you have the diversity there, but you also have the unity. Also, the tree changes appearance because the branches grow out in different directions, not symmetrically, but they'll grow out this way for a while, then they'll grow out that way for a while. So maybe the church grows swiftly in one part of the world, but not so swiftly. And so the church doesn't look perfectly round, but it has this kind of irregular shape to it.
And as all living organism, it continues to grow.
Grow and grow and grow. As far as we know, it could grow forever. Right.
And may the church be like a banyan tree. And may we keep strong as we are diverse in these different soils. Because this banyan tree is on one field, but the Seventh-day Adventist Church, it is worldwide.
That's
so
right.
We could see it surrounding the whole world,
Right.
this one tree.
What we have to talk about is global banyan tree Adventism.
Yes.
That's what it is.
Thank you, Dr. Larson.
Thank you, Dr. Ramirez. It's good to be with you.
We will see you again.